Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah, and in this video I want to share my thoughts on what putting income limits might have on the United States population. As always, I hope you can take something away from this video, and with that being said, let's get right into it. So for this video, like I said, I want to share some of my own personal opinions on something that I've been thinking about in my free time. I guess maybe, I don't know, there's probably better things to think about, more exciting things to think about perhaps, but this is something that I really truly have put a lot of thought into in the last few years, where I've really been exposed to a lot of the financial issues and financial topics that circulate, media in general, but especially here in the United States, when we have, a lot of the wealthiest individuals that the world has ever seen, and there's all of these discussions about income inequality and issues with people finding loopholes to not pay taxes, and the list goes on and on and on. And this was a topic that I kind of proposed to myself of what would be a good way that a country, in this case the United States, could disperse more of the money that is in circulation. So obviously we know that, the printers are going, granted, we don't really have the gold standard anymore, so a lot of money is kind of theoretical, I believe, but the printers are going, right? So money is being printed, and money is going around into circulation, into, our economy, and then into other economies as well. And I think a general consensus right now is that a lot of this wealth, or the majority of this wealth that's being circulated, is being funneled through to a very select group of individuals. And I think I've made some points on this in previous videos, where the biggest concern that I think a lot of individuals have, in modern day America in 2024, is that the middle class, is shrinking, right? So we have a shrinking middle class. So then at some point it'll become, very wealthy individuals, some moderately wealthy, and then just everybody else, fighting just to stay afloat. And I think that's a huge concern that I think a lot of people, including myself, have, because I don't believe that is conducive to a healthy economy for the masses. I think it's probably a healthy economy for a very select group of individuals, very small percentage of the population. But if we want to have a good experience for 90% or 95% or 100% perhaps, having a very robust middle class, basically having as many people making the same amount of money, is something that a country needs. So the idea that I had, and of course I want to hear your thoughts on this as well, in the comment section or whatever it is the idea of putting a income cap on an annual basis for basically everybody within an economy. And I know, a lot of very wealthy individuals, this is probably the worst thing that they could hear, right? And I think it only really applies to the very wealthy people. I'm talking about people making, multiple millions or tens of millions of dollars every single year. But I wouldn't consider someone, even a surgeon, a neurosurgeon or a heart surgeon making $500, $600, $700, $8,000 a year, to really be a part of the group that I'm kind of gearing this opinion towards. So you're probably wondering where I got this idea from in the first place. And for me personally, and this is obviously my personal opinion, having a limit on something like income, or disposable income, I should say, which is technically really a resource, right? Because you're not going to buy other resources by trade anymore, right? Generally speaking, you got to fork over cash to do it, is because this type of control is really seen in other aspects of our life, right? There's so many different areas within our life where we are capped on certain things. And a good example that I like to bring up are video games. And the reason, although a simple example, the reason I like to bring them up is because the way that games are designed, at least from the development side, is that they have everything set to a certain numerical value, right? So the ecosystem, right, their gaming ecosystem makes sense. And now if you have someone who's cheating perhaps, and they have more health or more power or damage than other people, then it disrupts their ecosystem, right? It wasn't designed to have one person being stronger than the other. And if you have multiple people with this advantageous extra health, extra damage, it further corrupts the entire ecosystem, and it makes for a rather unenjoyable experience. And this is seen commonly in video games, right? People that want to cheat to have an advantage. So for me, I think of this simple example, and I think, well, would that something similar, would that work for money, right? The number one piece of the number one tool, or whatever you want to call it, in modern society, everything kind of comes down to money, unfortunately, especially here in the United States. And I really did think on it for a while, and I thought maybe how it could work, and what are the pros, what are the cons on it. And I do believe to this day that I think something like this really would benefit the masses. And obviously, this is a hypothetical example. There's a good chance this may never come into fruition, but I think it's it's a good thought process, right? It's good food for thought. Where, what would the number be, right? What would the number be that we would cap incomes at? It's certainly not $100,000 or anything like that. At least for me personally, it would be probably in the tens of millions or something like that, perhaps. But at that point, when an individual gets to that point on a yearly basis or whatever, maybe it's, instead of an annual income cap, it's a net worth income cap, or net worth of the individual, something like that. When they get to that point, what happens, right, is that the rest of the resources are meant to be dispersed amongst other people. And I think this is a good thing on multiple levels, because I think humans in general are kind of obsessive about having more and more and more. After all, we're animals, and think of animals, squirrels and bears and so on in the wild, before going into a hibernation state, or anything like that. They want to accumulate as much as they can to get ready for the harsh winter or whatever threat is out there. And humans are largely the same, except it's more of a game for us, where people just accumulate obscene amounts of wealth just because they can, or just because it's easy. And I think having a cap is almost could be considered, at least looking at it from a gaming perspective, like a max level. And I think once you get working and you see what your max level is, it gives you something to work towards. And once you get to that point, you won, right? And I do think wholeheartedly that there are incomes that are completely sufficient to support basically everything that someone would need to do in life. I don't personally believe that 500 $1 million yachts really should exist, unless it's a conglomerate, right? Unless it's a group of people purchasing it. But for one person to buy something like that, for me, just doesn't seem human. It doesn't quite click. And I think having a max level, right? You make $30 million a year. You have enough for everything, right? Now it's time to disperse the other income. And I think, obviously this number I've kind of just made up on the top of my head. It could be different, right? Because one thing that I think is good to do for humans is to keep us in line, right? Everything else in normal people's lives are kept in line, in school, and the legal system, in your job, in your house, that you're renting, your apartment. We all have these expectations of us. You can't do this, you can't do that. But when it comes down to something as important as and as destructive sometimes as hoarding wealth, there are no rules almost, right? It's basically the sky's the limit. Do whatever you want, hoard as much as you want, and so on. And I don't think that is a conducive mindset for for the entirety of the entirety of an economy. Now, I know there's a lot of details that would need to be worked out to even get close to implementing something like this, but as a general reference, I think the easiest way to think about it would be if we simplify the numbers. So previously, I know I just mentioned like $30 million as the income cap per year. Now, that's a lot of money, right? Probably too much, but what if we use something a little bit more realistic, like $500,000, for example? So if the income cap hypothetically was $500,000, let's just say take home, right? So after tax, right? If we're including taxes, that is, well, I don't even know, depending on your state, but $900,000 perhaps pre-tax. Let's say your take home, the amount of money that you can take home on an annual basis, needs to be capped at $500,000. Hypothetically, what would happen is if you have, let's say you started a company and you got to that point, what can happen is you can't make any more. So you can start shuffling more of your money down to your employees, or you could even shuffle it down to the business end of things, so you could expand and potentially provide more jobs for other individuals as well. So this would compound, right? So then, because you're already at your limit, the money has to go somewhere, right? So it's going to go into your business, or it's going to go to your employees that are there. And then from there, they would get close to their limit, perhaps doing that job or other jobs, or, maybe taking on other endeavors or something like that. And then the cycle would kind of repeat itself. Before you know it, I think there would be a lot of people that would be benefiting from this cap, right? Because the money needs to disperse at the $500,000 as a take-home amount. So I don't know. I think like I said, I think it's a good thought experiment, and I'd love to, I don't know. I'd love to see it in action, because I feel like it would be quite interesting to see what transpires from forcing people to have a limit. And obviously, the limit would be reasonable. It wouldn't be anything like $100,000 or anything like that. It probably wouldn't even be $500,000. But like I said, I think it comes down to, we're limited in so many other aspects of our life. It feels weird not to have a limit on something as significant as money, right? It plays a huge role in politics, in legislation, in crime, and so many other things. So not having a limit in something as powerful as income, for me, seems a bit weird. So I don't know. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts on what might be a potential way to disperse more of the money that's being circulated here in the United States. But of course, I want to hear from you guys as well. What do you think of my thought on how we might better increase the financial stability of our country as a whole, rather than having a very select group of people taking everything, right? So like, this video obviously wasn't scripted in any kind of way. I just wanted to use it to share this thought that I've kind of had for some years now, and I wanted to hear if anybody else had any kind of feedback on this. So if you do happen to have an opinion on my video here, positive or negative, please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear them. And as always, if you've stuck along this far in the video, I want to thank you so much for your time today. And of course, happy financing.